Well, hi there, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Gary Neville Podcast. Always nicer where I'm sitting when you're talking about a Manchester United win. But what a terrific game in which Arsenal played a massive part as well.
Just something, Martin. Sometimes you come to a football match and you don't think you're going to get anything other than a really good game. And I just felt that today. I think we all did. Just the mood of both teams. United signing Antony and the excitement of obviously him starting. And we've not been disappointed. I thought the game was brilliant. Not the two best teams in the league, going off what's happened in the last few years, but I have to say a lot nearer than I imagined they would be a few weeks ago. United after that 4-0 at Brentford, but Arsenal before the season started.
And what has changed from the 4-0 at Brentford? 4 wins now, and Liverpool and Arsenal, the league leaders, amongst them. 2 away wins.
I honestly, Martin, have no idea. Then, well done, Erik ten Hag, the first thing, because the manager must take credit for what he did in that week between Brentford and Liverpool. I have no idea, because I thought those players would have been beaten and difficult to pick up. To get that level of effort and endeavour that he did against Liverpool and to get the result was something special, I have to say, as a recovery. And then today, I think they played against a really good Arsenal team. I actually thought this Arsenal performance here was a lot better than Liverpool's performance on that Monday Night Football a few weeks ago. I thought Arsenal were fantastic in this game. And 4 victories now for Manchester United. How they've recovered in the way in which they have, I don't know. Some people will say the manager. Some people will say it's the changes that have been made with regards to Cristiano Ronaldo, Harry Maguire being left out. Just something. I'll point to a little thing. I'll point to a little thing that I saw in the second half of the Brentford game, and that's the left-back Milicia. Someone on the pitch with a bit of personality and fight and a bit of spirit. And to be fair to Martinez, he wasn't on the pitch in that second half against Brentford because he got substituted. But against Liverpool, there's some real tenacity. And then from that, what you're seeing is Dalot is a lot more aggressive. The midfield players are a lot more aggressive. And it just takes one to demonstrate sometimes. It's about leadership. It doesn't always have to be the shouter. It doesn't always have to be the captain. It can be someone in the team who inspires you. Patrice Evra was a very similar left-back at Manchester United. I remember people saying to me when I joined Sky Sports, why does Sir Alex Ferguson have Patrice Evra as a captain? You'd have to be in the dressing room to understand why Patrice Evra was a captain and watch him in training every single day, because he was an absolute fireball in the dressing room. He was far more vocal than most Manchester United captains that I ever played with, including myself. So you see someone like Milicia, you see him there in the last part of the game, the aggression, the tenacity, it just rubs off on people. And Martinez is doing that as well. So I can point towards many, many things that could have happened. The composure of Eriksen, the changes he's made, the managers obviously turn around, but something's happened, something's clicked, they've got something going a little bit. They're not the finished article and there'll be more bumps in the road, there's no doubt, but they're putting a shift in, and that's the very minimum ask. And they're doing that game week in, week out now for about 2 or 3 weeks. That has to be for 2 or 3 years, 4 or 5 years.
Well, we'll come on to Antony in a moment, but Marcus Rashford has played his part in this. He sped away to score against Liverpool. He's done the double against Arsenal today after a long period not scoring for Manchester United, a long period not scoring for Manchester United against Arsenal since that debut game. But he looks like the Rashford that England want and, of course, United want. Yeah,
I mean, there was a period 2 or 3 weeks ago where I said, I think we've got to stop having a go at the players. But they can't all be bad, can they? So what is the thing that's missing? Now, Erik ten Hag's worked that out pretty quickly, and Marcus Rashford, Erik ten Hag told us that Marcus Rashford came up to him and said, play me centre forward. And apparently he responded with, OK, then you get your chance. And that's what's happened. Even though his goal today has come from the left, he's gone up top. That's where he wants to play. It's where he can run. Marcus Rashford on the left probably hasn't got the subtlety for the game. He relies upon the space, the energy to run in behind. He hasn't got that inventiveness of the other sort of wide players that we see in the league who know the position better, who've got more technical ability on the ball. What Rashford's good at is running in behind people and driving at people. And that's what's happened in this last couple of weeks. Playing centre forward is a lot less complicated for Rashford. And obviously the confidence of the team, the victory against Liverpool, you see today. I mean, at Old Trafford, I've seen Old Trafford twice in the last couple of weeks. You've seen it, you've been here with me. That was back to what it can be. And that's the first time I've seen Old Trafford like that for a long, long time, I have to say, in both games. So that will only lift the players' confidence, their belief, their understanding of each other's spirit and their togetherness. You know, Manchester United, 2-3 weeks ago, I thought they were beaten. And I said if they didn't add to that squad after Brentford, they could end up in the bottom half of the table. They're not going to end up in the bottom half of the table now. They're not going to win the league. I don't think there's any doubt of that either. But they can have a better season than we all imagined. They've had to spend 230 million quid to get there.
That takes us to Antony. It is a massive price,
Massive.
but there's the first dividend on it today.
Look, there's no doubt Casemiro and Antony were a reaction to 4-0 at Brentford. The scale of the bids, the size of the money they're being paid, I bet Ajax couldn't believe it. Ajax didn't want to sell him. It wasn't in their plans to sell Antony, but they looked at the fee that was being offered and thought, this is more than we could ever imagine for a player, even though he's a really fantastic player. So Manchester United have had to do what they've done in previous seasons, which is appease the fans, the family. I'm going to mention them. That's what they do. They buy players, they sack managers to basically get the fans back on side and to try and quell the discontent that's occurring. But the fans are still singing about the Glazer family throughout the game, before the game, and even now at the end of the game. So it's not going to go away, that. But I have to say, the amount of spend, it was budgeted that there was going to be £140 million spend. They spent 230. So they'll say that was strategic or that it was in the planning. It wasn't. However, the upshot is that the most important thing at the moment on the pitch is that the players give their all. And that team for the last couple of weeks has shown a Manchester United spirit, a spirit that every fan at every other club wants as well. But I must say, Arsenal's players showed a spirit. Martin, we've covered Arsenal for 10, 12 years together, and there have been times where we've come off the pitch and thought, that's a flaky mob, that's a soft, but they're a really good side. There was one complaint I had against Arsenal today, and that was that I didn't believe they reacted to the 2-1 very well. They got too desperate too early on and off the pitch. I think everything else was really...
Change the tactics, change the players.
Yeah, and do you know something? I played under a manager here who would often throw the kitchen sink at a football match, and that would be with 5 minutes to go, and you'd lump everything forward, and you end up with 2 defenders at the back, and you'd get counter-attacked on, but you might have 7 in the box. It was 20 minutes to go. And Mikel Arteta's worked with Pep Guardiola, obviously, at City, and City, when they're chasing a game, they continue to do the same things. And I was really surprised to see those 3 subs come on. And I was thinking, when the third one was coming on, who's coming off? And when I saw Zinchenko, I thought, oh, that's a problem. Because once you lose your balance and your shape, you have a real problem.
Tierney was the logical replacement, wasn't he?
Yeah, I just felt as though, and I should have said it before the goal went in, but I thought straight away, this could be a 4-1 game or a 4-2 the other way, and Arsenal could just go and score loads of goals. The next goal was going to be critical, but Manchester United got it straight away because that space that was there to play through Arsenal, because of all those attacking players on the pitch, was enormous. And that was the little bit of the game Arsenal maybe got wrong today, did get wrong, but the rest of it, I thought they were really good.
You say about the top 2, really. You're saying they're not the Liverpool and Man City. Where do we find Liverpool and Man City with half a dozen games gone?
You've got to trust them because they've built up enough credits in the bank. City, disappointing, I'm sure, yesterday with the draw at Villa. I was watching it last night thinking, even when they go to 1-1 Villa, you're thinking City will go and score a late goal. So it's a surprise, dropping points, going down against Crystal Palace as they did, but having to come back. So there's things happening that are not smooth.
But there's Erling Haaland.
but I anticipate City will win this league, and they could win it comfortably in the end. It's very early on. Erling Haaland it just looks a bit unfair. I said it, I think, a couple of weeks ago. I think of the reference I've used...
It's a man playing in a kid's playground game at times, isn't it?
I remember when I watched James Bond films when I was younger, and there was the character Jaws who was like 7'2", and he used to pick people up and just chuck them on the floor. And it's a little bit like that when you watch Haaland against strong centre-backs. You think, wow, he's just unplayable. How do you even cope with him in the box? And the one thing I would say is that Erling Haaland's career at the City, I think, will prolong his overall career because he's just standing there. I think Erling Haaland would be interested in a game like today, where the game gets stretched and it's end-to-end, where you're seeing his power and his strength. The way Manchester City play with that possession that they keep, you never really see him stretching teams out other than when they get 1 or 2 in front. And City didn't get, Villa didn't get desperate yesterday, so they kept the same compact system when they were 1-0 down. So I have to say, but, just massively impressed with him. And I said a few weeks ago, the first time we've signed what I believe to be one of the top 2-3 players in the world of the future, Mbappe as well, you'd put in that category. Ordinarily, those players go to Paris Saint-Germain or to Real Madrid and Barcelona. We have got that player. Cristiano Ronaldo, when he became the best player in the world here, or Thierry Henry maybe at Arsenal, they didn't sign as being prospects of being the best player in the world. They just developed to being that when they were here at times. Whereas actually this player, you fully anticipate he's going to go on and win Ballon d'Ors and going to be the best player in the world. And that's exciting. That's not happened for quite a while in the Premier League, in the sense that the managers that we've got here are fantastic, and the teams that we've got here. That game today, Martin, was absolutely brilliant. You know, and look, I'm a Manchester United fan, so I'm a little bit happier because they've won. But credit to Arsenal, that was a brilliant game. I'm watching that game every single day of the week and excited by it.
You talk about the manager quality, and Jurgen Klopp is very much in that conversation, isn't he? But they haven't quite got the start that they wanted. You know, the cynics are saying, well, he does 7 years at Mainz, 7 years at Dortmund, and now he's in his 7th year. He's coming up to 7 years at Liverpool. But that's surely a bit unfair, isn't it?
I think it is unfair because, I mean, I think I'd love Pep Guardiola and Jurgen Klopp to leave City and Liverpool. But I just think at the moment, when I look at sort of the reason Pep Guardiola has not left Manchester City is because he's got everything he wants here. They're investing in the players he wants. They've got a fantastic team. And where does he go that would give him any better? And I say the same for Jurgen Klopp. I mean, look, those clubs won't get better managers either. Let's be clear. Jurgen Klopp's an absolute phenomenon. So, but then I think to myself, where would Jurgen Klopp go now that you think would be better for him than Liverpool Football Club, and the way in which the Premier League is dominating? He's playing in Champions League finals. He's competing against the other best managers in the world that are here at the moment. So I think at the moment, no, I don't believe that's fair. I don't believe that's right. I think Jurgen Klopp has got that emotion in him. He's got that little bit of Kevin Keegan in him, hasn't he, that you think when his time is up, he will just say, all right, I'm gone. But I don't think that's now. He looks like he's enjoying it there too much to me. He enjoys the football, he enjoys the league, I think he enjoys Liverpool fans. And, you know, it'd be wishful thinking of Manchester United fans to think that Jurgen Klopp was leaving, and I don't think that's the case. He's, like I say, he's a phenomenal manager doing a brilliant job at Liverpool, and, you know, he's just had a little bit of a bumpy start to the season. They'll get it right, Liverpool, I'm sure. We'll
come on to finish up with VAR, but before that, I want to talk about the earlier game today, because there are two ends of that story. Brighton 5, Leicester 2, and Brighton are in the top four.
Yeah.
And had they not had a bit of a jolt in midweek, they would be higher still than fourth. But it is extraordinary. You could say they're playing against the bottom club today, but you know they were a goal down after a minute and then come out with that kind of performance.
Graham Potter, I'm sure there were games last year that I was doing as a Friday night football. I'm sure they were getting booed. Was that right? Am I imagining
they had a very poor home record, didn't they? Couldn't score goals at
I'm
home.
sure they were getting booed or jeered, or there was a little bit of discontent at the end of a couple of the matches that I went and did. And I'm thinking, why? I mean, he's doing an absolutely...
I think you're going to have to go a bit further back when he first started.
He's just doing an absolutely brilliant job. I think, look at Brighton, well coached, great system, good style of play.
Good recruitment,
good selling, good buying. Yeah. And it's not easy, I imagine, to do what they're doing and have to maintain a level that they're maintaining. So well done to them. No, it's an absolutely phenomenal performance. On the opposite of that, I really worry about Leicester. I have to say, earlier in the season when Kasper Schmeichel, he went to Nice, and I thought, why? Why is that one being sanctioned? Because you talk about character, we just talked about Melissa down here, or Martinez, and the impact that they have. You know, Kasper Schmeichel, not only a very good goalkeeper, but you imagine the presence and the impact that he'd have on that dressing room and the comfort he would give to everybody. And you can't replace that very easily. You just can't replace that. They've lost Maguire before. They've lost N'Golo Conte before. They've lost players before. Mahrez. They've lost players before. But I just thought it was a strange thing to do. And then obviously Fofana has left as well. I'm be worried if I was a Leicester fan, and obviously rumours that the manager is in trouble. Brendan Rodgers done a brilliant job there, but
is he in danger of doing what Scott Parker ill-advisedly did and having comments that are not interpreted by the board? I mean, Brenda's been there a bit longer than Scott was at Bournemouth.
What else was he supposed to say, Brendan Rodgers, that you know he expected the window to go better? I think everybody expected. I mean, Leicester hadn't signed a player up until whatever. I just find it. Leicester have been a little like Brighton. When they've let players go, they've brought other ones in. They've been pretty good at replacing them. But you just look at what's happened there now, and I just think I'm worried for Brendan. I'm worried for Leicester because, you know, winning the league, how many years ago was that now? 7, 8?
2016.
Yeah.
So, it'll be 7 at the end of this season. Yeah.
And I look at them at the moment, and they're looking a bit of trouble. I have to say. It doesn't look like it's right there. And I think when you demoralise a dressing room and a manager and a coaching staff with the players that leave, it's very difficult to recover that. So I would be very worried if I was Leicester at this moment in time.
Well, plenty of VAR calls on that game as well, and a couple here. Obviously, Arsenal with a goal disallowed. which would have put them 1-0 up, and we might have had a different story to report on. But yesterday, and now the Premier League have said they're investigating what went wrong in the Chelsea game with the disallowed goal for Max Cornet, and the Newcastle, it was an own goal actually, but the disallowed goal. Where are we with it? It seemed that we were going okay, and now it's backslid a bit. Is that fair?
There's this feeling that sort of at Sky we are pro VAR. We're never told to comment on VAR either negatively or positively, ever. I've listened to people for 10 years pre-VAR where balls have gone over the line, or that goal line technology came in, or where there's been massive calls made that have caused relegations, promotions, Champions League places lost through bad decisions, penalties not being given, offsides, all those sorts of things.
Aubameyang had a goal here that was given offside, and Arsenal, I think, drew that game because of VAR.
Yeah. So I've witnessed people for years say technology should be introduced into football. Then we had that first year where I thought there was a little bit of arrogance, to be fair, from the PGA-MOL around how they used it and hadn't used the workings and the sort of experience that had been gathered in Europe and in competitions in sort of World Cups and European Championships. And then I thought, right, last year we'd settled down. People accepted that there were sort of teething problems with VAR in that first year, got over it. They're using it better. I think generally the on-field refereeing, I think, is very, very good. Why would I say that, by the way? I complained about referees for years. I don't need to say that. You know what I mean? I think the on-field refereeing, the speed of that game that we're watching, we see that one today where Eriksen with Ødegaard, we have to watch that 2, 3, 4 times. They're watching that in real time. So the idea that they should get every decision right on the pitch for referees, they get a lot right. And I have to say that the standard refereeing is really good. That's the first thing to say. However, VAR has had a very, very, very bad weekend. A very bad weekend. And it's brought it back into the fore. And the people who are very against it, the people who think it destroys the ethos of the game, they now obviously have something to go on again. So it won't go away. Let's be really clear. I'm going to look in the camera and say it to you. It is not going anywhere. This is not... What they'll have to do is just get better at it.
It still seems to take away more than it gives. I mentioned the Aubameyang one, which was a goal that wouldn't have stood. It was given offside, but VAR proved that it was a proper goal. But Alexis McAllister scored a wonderful goal that was ruled out by VAR. But
Martin, we forget the amount of times that VAR is right with offsides and other decisions where we just take it for granted. There are always going to be those subjective ones whereby they get thrown over to the side of the pitch. There's always going to be those. So today, if there hadn't have been VAR, we'd have been talking about whether that was the right decision and whether the referee on the pitch was bad or not with that call. Arsenal fans would have been talking about whether Paul Tierney was Manchester United fans would have been saying Paul Tierney's a disgrace, it was a foul. Arsenal fans are now saying VAR's a disgrace. So one of the sets of fans in every single subjective call is going to be angry with the decision by an on-field referee if there's no VAR, or by VAR if there is VAR in the game. So I don't believe that this is... we seem to forget the amount of abuse that referees were getting at the end of games by us, managers, coaches, fans, the media.
I hope not abuse by
No,
us.
but the amount of pressure that we were applying to poor decisions on referees when VAR wasn't in. Do we forget that? Do we forget the amount of interviews that Sir Alex Ferguson did here, or Arsene Wenger did when he said, I never saw it? All those years that we saw those interviews where on-field referees were getting battered by fans, by coaches, by us, chasing them, Andy D'Urso all over the pitch here one time. If you remember all that pressure we used to put on the on-field referee, now we've transferred some of that pressure to VAR. So I have to say, whichever way you look at it, we're now talking about whether the actual stopping of the game, the fact that we have to look at it 20 times is something that is... Fans don't like it. The fans don't like it. I'm a fan of more accurate decision making. I'm a fan of technology in sport. However, what I'm not a fan of is giving the fans a game that they don't like as much.
But United fans loved the fact that Martinelli's goal was ruled out. So there's always a vested interest from somewhere, isn't there?
That's my point.
Is it a case, if in the protocol you have to be a qualified referee? At the beginning, you had to be a referee within the system or refereed the last year or maybe the year before that. Maybe that's changed a little bit. Is there a case for another breed of football expert making these calls from responsible ex-players? You could do it. I mean, I'm sure you wouldn't want to do it.
But you know something, Martin? Today, me and you were there today. We've watched that Eriksen-Ødegaard incident back 4, 5, 6 times. At half-time, we discussed it. And there was an angle where I thought, that's soft. That's not a free kick. And then there's another angle where Ødegaard's left knee, I think it's, or right knee, goes into the side of Eriksen's leg, and I think, that could definitely be something that was worth looking at, because he never got the ball either. The lads in the studio at half-time didn't seem to be able to make their mind up either. I don't think it's time for these experts, people who've played the game, to go and sit in a VAR studio. Honestly, one of the biggest problems is that they're sat remotely in a studio 250 miles away on their own, detached completely from the emotion of the game, and are asked to make a decision.
But they say that's what they want. They chose to do that.
I get that, but I still think it must be really difficult. When I went to Stockley Park to do the VAR sort of thing with Cara before it got introduced, and we saw them then, I'm thinking, this stadium's been bouncing, and an on-field referee's got the feeling of the atmosphere in the game, and then they go to this very cold, sanitised studio 300 miles away, and he's looking at some sort of replays, and he's probably having a cup of tea 1 minute, he's watching the game the next. I'm sure he's more alert than that, but it just doesn't feel right. That's the bit that I'm struggling with a little bit. But overall...
It does lead to impartiality, though.
It's impartial.
Because you've played in games here where the crowd have got a decision for you, haven't you? I mean, let's be honest now.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, look, you can put pressure... You can put pressure in a big stadium on a referee. There is no doubt about that. And we've seen Arsenal players today and Manchester United players haranguing the referee and officials. Xhaka at times, Fernandes in particular. So them two have been chasing down Paul Tierney most of the match. So that will happen. And it used to be at Manchester United and Arsenal games 30 years ago, we'd get round the referee. But we're never going to have perfection. The thing I would say is, if we're talking about a Champions League final, a league decider in the last minute of the season, and you want an accurate decision, I'd rather have technology. I'd rather lose a league. Chelsea fans won't like this. We lost a league here through an offside goal where Didier Drogba, I don't know if you remember it, where he was offside here. He scored with 10 minutes to go in a game, 3 games before the end of the season. And Chelsea fans will say they would have won the league anyway. I disagree with them. But that would have been disallowed. And we may have won the league through that goal being disallowed. So I look back and think, did we lose a league because of that? Now, people will say, Gary, you're taking the mickey here, because you won many leagues for Manchester United where you had influence on, minutes added on or whatever it might be that we had. But generally, fans will always feel, players will always feel that they want accurate decisions. If I come into a dressing room after a game and my team has lost because of a VAR call, but I think actually it was right, I'm okay with it. I'd hate to come off and think that we've lost through a decision that was really bad. I don't think will Arsenal fans be really annoyed with that Ødegaard one? And they will be.
They will be.
But I always say to yourself, switch it round. Would you want that the other way? You would. You've got to ask that question. Would you want that as a foul the other way? Of course you would.
It's about timing as well, though, but that would have given them a leg up very early in the game. But we'll never know.
Did you think it was a foul?
In real time, no.
I didn't either.
No. And I think that's the one thing about the slow motion replays I've always been suspicious of. You should show them in real time. And I think that gives you the clue as to whether it is, because I could bump into you and fall over and it'll look like you've pushed me over in slow motion, which you have done a few times.
Did you think, like I was thinking, that Paul Tierney was thinking of going against VAR as well?
I did.
He was one.
He gave himself every chance to
he was there
to stick with his own decisions.
He didn't like it.
Michael Oliver did yesterday.
Yeah.
And
he didn't like it. He didn't like it, Paul Tierney.
No.
He didn't like the decision that VAR had made or the Stockley Park official had made, I don't think.
Bad weekend at the Stockley Park and nothing worse than that?
I think a really bad weekend. I think that Mikel Arteta may focus on that after the game and say that it cost his team. Arsenal fans may focus on that after the game. But I wouldn't, and I wouldn't if I was a Manchester United fan either. I generally wouldn't do, because I generally think over a season these things will even themselves out. That's one of the oldest cliches in the book, but it generally will. I think that they've got to operate it better. I think they are operating it better. It's just been some poor decisions this weekend. They've got... I don't know why poor decisions, mistakes will happen. We got to a good place on it where I think people accepted it was working more efficiently, that it was quicker. We weren't having the 2-minute delays that we were having previously. So I think things were working a lot better. It's just a setback this weekend, but it's a bad one because there's some big noise out there against it and it won't go away, but neither will VAR. They're not going to scrap it.
But how do you feel watching Salford play with no VAR?
I'm okay with it. Do you know something? Because we've never had it, and I've watched it for that's the one thing people say, don't they? They say, well, if you can't implement it throughout the game, throughout grassroots, throughout non-league, throughout lower leagues, why do you have it at the top league?
Because they can afford it.
They can afford it, and
yeah.
Obviously the cost of operating it is huge. I have to say that when I saw it in the World Cup in 2018, it was introduced. I liked it. It's been operated better abroad at times than it has done in this country. We've got to get better at it, but we are getting better. The on-field refereeing, by the way, there was a refereeing performance the other week that I thought was absolutely outstanding. Some of the refereeing performances I've seen have been brilliant. They've been absolutely brilliant. However, VAR, shocking weekend. Just a shocking weekend. We've all had them.
But a great game today.
Absolutely brilliant. Loved the game. I was loving the game at 1-1, Martin. I was loving the game at 1-1. I thought it was a breath of fresh air to watch that game today. Partly because the two clubs who have struggled in the last few years, and I thought that was a far better showing from both clubs in terms of what they are.
Gary, thank you.
Thank you.